One of the requests that drives me absolutely goofy is when someone asks me for my elevator speech. Whether it's about my Christian faith or my approach to church leadership or ending poverty, I don't have a plan for that. I always feel like I'm being forced to talk about something important in the equivalent of a series of Twitter posts. And yet, it seems that's how our society prefers things. Executive summaries, bullet points, tweets, Instagram posts, short, to the point, efficient, and often useful, if not always able to capture the details of whatever we're talking about. Then again, there is something about a good summary, and to the discipline of boiling things down to their essentials. During Lent, we focused on the baptismal covenant, a set of liturgical bullet points, if ever there was one. And at our last set of adult forum meetings, before we stopped meeting, we talked about the creeds as a kind of elevator speech that captures in some way the heart of our Christian faith. And truth be told, what we have here in our first reading is something along those lines. An executive summary of what the church looked like, perhaps through rose-colored glasses, when it got its start, at least according to the writer of Acts. And it wouldn't be out of place in a series of tweets with the hashtag Church Essentials. In 5 verses, it's pretty much all right there. The gathering as fellowship to engage the apostles' teaching we find in the Bible and in the history of our faith, the breaking of the bread and the prayers, both at home and in the temple for them, the church for us, sharing and holding goods in common to meet needs, whether ours or those of others, revelations of joy and insight, praise and generosity. Well, add people and stir. That's church, broken down to its component parts. It's funny to me to note what is not there in that summary, though. I've been spending some of my time at home reading a big book on the Reformation that's been sitting on my shelf for about 5 years now. And as I read it, I find myself amazed at what Christians fought over with each other, and the lengths to which they went to make sure that their view won the day, up to and including eliminating their adversaries. It was Catholic versus Protestant, Lutheran versus Reformed, Catholic versus Catholic, so many permutations on how I can be right and you can be wrong. But if you asked me to tell you what they were actually fighting about, very little of it would appear in this executive summary we find in Acts. A lot of it, most of it even, was about the details of being a church, not really the heart of the matter. Even more, their behavior toward each other failed the test of Acts' executive summary of a community sitting down together in common and breaking bread in peace and joy. Alas, we do not always know that we are Christians by our love, as the hymn has it. Sometimes we're known more by what we argue about. I suspect those Christians in the time of the Reformation and beyond, and even now, were making a mistake we all might make from time to time, and not just about faith. The mistake is thinking that our way is the only right way, and everyone else, and every other way, is wrong. But that's the great thing about a summary. Its bullet points literally point the way, but there are probably a zillion right ways to live them out, if we can stand to live with all that diversity, that is. But if Christianity is anything, it is diverse in its details. There have always been many ways to live it out, in house churches and monasteries, alone in the desert or in big urban communities, married and single, as widows and widowers, sometimes in caves, and in communes where there really are no possessions, along with other communities where property is handled differently, for better and for worse. but not a single one of them can claim to be the only right way, and all of them have their pitfalls. Perhaps more than anything, we need the diversity as a way to learn from each other, as we seek to remain faithful to the particular path, the details we have chosen as a way to live out our Christian faith. In that light, maybe an elevator speech isn't so goofy after all. And in a moment like today, where all the details of the way we have always done it aren't possible anymore, Acts' executive summary may be more helpful than ever. Despite the challenges of a pandemic, I can't help but see a further opportunity for St. Simon's in this interim time to explore new ways of living out the basics of our faith and letting go of some of those details. What is God revealing to us about the heart of our fellowship in this time? About how we share what we have in common? Even about the breaking of the bread? Are we discovering that our everyday meals are also Eucharist of a sort? Is the pandemic time unveiling new needs, whether among our number or in our community? What possessions might we surrender for the sake of the whole? How will the shape of our life together be different when we are able to gather together again once more? Perhaps we feel we're making it up as we go along, and in a way we are, though guided by our elevator speech. And the good news is, we've always done it that way. It's right there in the book of Acts. How else will we discover new right ways to be a church together unless we keep just being creative as we go along?